There is a balcony on this thing. Not a step, not a slide out, a balcony with a glass railing on a motorhome, on a vehicle that drives down a public road. And the second I saw that, I knew I had to break this one down properly, because whoever dreamed this up wasn't designing an RV. They were designing a penthouse that happens to have wheels. Now, full transparency right up front, the way I always do it on this channel, what you're looking at is an AI-generated concept. It is not real. No factory built this, no showroom has it, no one is taking deposits. It is pure imagination rendered into extraordinary detail. And that is exactly why it deserves a serious breakdown. Because when a designer has zero real-world constraints, zero manufacturing budgets, zero boardroom compromises, this is what comes out. Here's what we're doing today. We're going full walk around, the front face, the side profile, that jaw-dropping upper deck. We're going to logically reconstruct what's happening inside, talk through what powertrain would actually make sense for something this ambitious, and at the end, I'm going to give you my honest verdict. But stay with me because there is one feature on the upper level of this concept that I genuinely believe represents an idea that the real RV industry has been too timid to attempt. And I'm saving that for when we get there. Let's go. All right, let's start at the front, because the front face of this concept is doing something that immediately separates it from every other motorhome you've ever seen. Most motorhomes have a flat front, a wall, a windshield, maybe some chrome. They look like what they are, a box that was designed to hold furniture while moving down a highway. This one looks like it was designed by someone who spent their career in automotive design, and then one day decided to ask, what if we actually tried? The grille on this concept has a structured diamond lattice pattern, bold, architectural, immediately luxury, and it sits framed inside a fascia that sweeps backward with genuine intent. The headlights are slim, blade-like, aggressive in a way that communicates speed rather than bulk. And that matters because your brain reads the front of a vehicle the same way it reads a face, and this face says, I am not here to apologize for my size. The hood flows back into a dramatically raked cab, and this is where it starts getting interesting. That steep windshield angle isn't just aesthetics. A more raked windshield on a vehicle this tall reduces the blunt face air resistance that makes most motorhomes feel like they're fighting the highway. In a real engineering scenario, that shaping would contribute meaningfully to fuel or energy efficiency, so it's not just pretty, it's logical. Now let's move along the side profile and take a breath because this is where the concept really opens up. The lower body is silver, clean, almost metallic cold, with these sweeping bronze-copper accent lines that run the full length of the vehicle. And I want to talk about those lines specifically because they're not decoration. Those horizontal graphic lines are doing something visually very sophisticated. They're making this vehicle look longer and lower than it actually is. They draw your eye forward and back simultaneously, creating a sense of motion even when it's standing still. That's a technique borrowed directly from high-end automotive design. You see versions of it on sports sedans, on supercars. On an RV, it's almost unheard of. And it works. The glass-to-body ratio on the mid and upper sections is extraordinary. I mean, look at those side windows, floor to ceiling almost, running nearly the full habitable length of the vehicle. And here's why that matters to you, not as a design observer, but as someone who might imagine actually living in this thing. Natural light is the single most powerful tool in interior design for creating a sense of space. You can have a 500 square foot room that feels like a prison if there's no natural light, and a 200 square foot room that feels like a retreat if there's glass everywhere. Whoever designed this understands that deeply. The roof line on the upper deck is where the aerodynamic thinking gets most sophisticated. It doesn't sit flat like a box. It curves, gently, deliberately, rising at the midpoint and tapering slightly toward the rear. That curve is doing real work. It's channeling air over the top of the structure rather than letting it catch and drag. For a vehicle this tall in a real-world scenario, that could mean the difference between a handling nightmare at highway speeds and something that feels composed, planted, controlled. The wheels. Let's talk about the wheels, because the wheel choice on a concept tells you everything about the designer's intent. These are large-diameter, multi-spoke alloys, clean, modern, not overdone. They're not trying to scream, and that restraint is actually the right call here. When the vehicle itself is this dramatic, the wheels need to support the statement, not compete with it. These do exactly that. And now, the upper deck. Because we need to spend a moment here, because this is not something you see, ever. The upper level of this concept extends beyond the lower coach body and features what appears to be a full-width outdoor balcony, glass panel railing, open air, with what looks like a sliding door entrance from the interior. There is a figure standing on it in this render, dressed in white, and that single detail, that single human being standing on a balcony on a motorhome, communicates the entire design philosophy of this concept in one image. This designer wasn't thinking about campsites. They were thinking about panoramic hillside views, coastal sunsets, mountain mornings. They were thinking about arriving somewhere and stepping outside, above the world, without going inside a building. That is not an RV feature. That is a penthouse feature, and someone put it on wheels. The exterior alone makes this one of the most conceptually ambitious designs I've analyzed on this channel. But the exterior, as stunning as it is the easy part. Because what I think is happening inside this concept is where things get genuinely extraordinary, and that's where we're going next. Now, no interior shots in this concept render, so what I'm going to do is what I always do in this situation. I'm going to put on my detective hat, look at what the exterior is telling us, and logically reconstruct what's happening inside. Because exterior design is never arbitrary. Every proportion, every roofline decision, every glass panel placement tells you something about the interior logic underneath it. So, let's work through this space by space. Based on the exterior proportions, and this thing appears to be in the range of 45 to 50 feet long, possibly more, the habitable section would comfortably span somewhere between 35 and 40 feet after you account for the powertrain cab up front. And critically, this is a two-story design. That changes everything about how you think about the available square footage. Where a conventional luxury motorhome gives you one floor plan, this concept is essentially proposing two. The lower level, based on the window placement and the extended slide-outs I can see in the midsection, would almost certainly house the primary living spaces, lounge, kitchen, dining, all opening toward those spectacular panoramic side windows. And if my read on the proportions is right, you're looking at ceiling heights of at least 6.5, possibly 7 feet on the lower level. In a motorhome. That's the number that makes the difference between feeling like you're in a vehicle and feeling like you're in a room. A real room, the kind you'd actually want to spend time in. The living area. Imagine stepping through the main entry, which based on the body line appears to be mid-ship on the driver's side, into a lounge that runs maybe 12 to 15 feet of the lower level. Floor-to-ceiling glass on one side, the landscape of wherever you've parked flowing into the space like a painting you can actually walk into. The design language we're seeing on the exterior, that bronze and silver palette, those clean, sweeping lines, almost certainly continues inside. Think dark upholstery, warm metallic accents, ambient lighting built into curved surfaces, not RV materials. Yacht materials. There's a difference, and anyone who's spent time in both knows exactly what I mean. In a two-level layout of this size, the logical placement for the master sleeping area is the upper level, directly above the main living space, with access to that outdoor balcony. And this is where this concept does something that no production RV on Earth currently offers. Imagine a sleeping suite. Real bed, real ceiling height, real privacy that opens directly onto an outdoor balcony. You wake up, you slide open the door, you step outside above the vehicle, above the ground, above the landscape, and have your morning coffee in open air. On a vehicle you drove there. I've stayed in hotels that couldn't offer that experience. Based on the lower level depth, the kitchen in a concept like this would be working with genuinely usable dimensions, not the compromised galley kitchens you find in conventional coaches, but something closer to a proper residential layout. Full-size induction surfaces, integrated refrigeration, possibly a proper oven, the kind of kitchen where you could actually cook, not heat things up, but cook. The glass wall alongside it means you're not cooking in a box, you're cooking with a view. That's a completely different experience. Here's where the fictional nature of this concept works in its favor, because in the real world, plumbing in a 2-story rolling structure is a serious engineering challenge. But if we're in imagination territory, and clearly we are, this concept seems to propose bathroom facilities on both levels. The lower level would logically handle a full wet bath, proper shower, vanity, toilet, and based on the upper deck proportions, there may well be a secondary ensuite connected to the master sleeping area. Private, quiet, separated from the main living spaces, the way a proper suite works, not the way an RV works. The cockpit. The driver's cab on this concept is semi-separate. You can see the distinct cab-over design at the front, sitting slightly lower than the main habitable upper level, almost like a captain's bridge on a ship. And that framing is intentional, I think. This isn't a driver's seat, it's a command position. Based on the styling language, I'd expect a cockpit that borrows from aviation and supercar design, curved instrument clusters, possibly a heads-up display, wrap-around visibility that gives the driver situational awareness across a much wider field than a conventional motorhome allows. And in a concept this ambitious, it would almost be shocking if autonomous driving assistance wasn't part of the vision. Adaptive cruise, lane management, automatic braking. Not full autonomy, but meaningful assistance for a vehicle of this size and weight. A concept at this level implies smart everything. Climate zones, separate for upper and lower levels, automated shades on those panoramic windows, a connected home system you'd control from a phone or a voice command. Again, in the world of this concept, the technology exists. In the real world, most of it exists too. It just hasn't been applied to a rolling structure quite like this. Yet. Okay, let's talk about what would actually move this thing. Because this is where the physics get interesting. And honestly, a little challenging. A structure of this size, this height, this weight, if built, would be a heavy vehicle. We're talking potentially in the range of 30,000 to 40,000 pounds fully loaded. That's Class 8 territory. That's the weight class of serious long-haul trucks. And that immediately tells you something about the powertrain requirements. If this concept were pushed toward a real engineering scenario, and I love thinking through that, you'd almost certainly be looking at a hybrid or full electric platform built on a heavy-duty commercial chassis. Not the kind of EV platform you put under a passenger car, something much more substantial. Think large format battery packs, potentially in the 400 to 600 kilowatt-hour range, paired with high-torque electric motors on multiple axles. You can see what appears to be a triple-axle rear configuration in this render, which makes structural sense for load distribution, but would also make a multi-motor all-wheel drive system genuinely logical. Now, the roof. Because look at that upper deck roofline carefully. There appears to be solar panel integration built into the upper surface, and in the context of a concept this sophisticated, that's not a token gesture. That's a meaningful off-grid contribution. In a real-world scenario, a properly sized solar array on a roof this large could potentially generate enough power to handle climate control, lighting, water heating, and general household loads. Not the drivetrain, but everything else. That's the difference between a vehicle that needs shore power every night and one that can genuinely sit off-grid for extended periods. And off-grid capability in a concept at this level of luxury, that's not a camping feature. That's a freedom feature. It means you're not tied to a campground, not hunting for power hookups, not rationing your electricity. You park where the view is best. Full stop. Now, in the world of this concept, we'd also expect some form of hydrogen fuel cell supplementation or extended range generator integration for the times when solar isn't sufficient. The technology to make all of this work at this scale is approaching real-world viability. It's not here yet, fully, but the direction is right. And that's exactly what a forward-looking concept is supposed to do. Point at where things are going before the industry is ready to go there. All right, honest verdict time. This is a fictional concept, AI generated. It's not rolling off any factory floor, and it probably never will, at least not in this exact form. And I want to say that clearly, the way I always do on this channel, because the point here was never to pretend otherwise. The point was to ask, what if? And when you ask that question with this much creative ambition, the answer is genuinely worth your time. So, what does this concept do genuinely well? The roofline and aerodynamic logic are more sophisticated than most concept renders I see. A lot of AI-generated designs look dramatic but feel structurally incoherent. This one has a visual logic that actually holds up under analysis. The two-story layout is bold but not irrational. The proportions make sense. The bronze-silver design language is distinctive without being garish. And that balcony, I keep coming back to the balcony, because it represents something that's bigger than a design feature. It represents a philosophy that mobile living doesn't mean compromised living, that you can have the experience of a luxury penthouse and the freedom of the open road at the same time. That idea is genuinely ahead of its time. What seems impractical? The height, honestly. A structure this tall faces real challenges. Bridge clearances, wind loading at highway speed, stability in crosswinds. These are solvable engineering problems, but they're not trivial ones. And the balcony, as extraordinary as it is, would require some serious structural and safety engineering to make road legal in most countries. But again, that's the point of a concept. You dream it first, you solve it second. What's the one detail I find most impressive? The balcony, obviously, but specifically how it's positioned. It's not tacked on, it's not an afterthought, it's structurally integrated into the upper-level design in a way that suggests the designer thought about how a person would actually use it, where they'd stand, what they'd see, how it would feel. That's not render jockey thinking, that's genuine design empathy, and that's rare. What would I change? The front face. It's almost too aggressive. The grille and fascia have an intensity that feels slightly at odds with the serene, penthouse in motion vibe of the rest of the concept. I'd soften the front slightly, make it more truck, more sculpture. Let the drama come from the form, not the face. What does this say about where luxury mobility is heading? It says that the conversation is shifting. The best minds in design are starting to look at mobile living not as a compromise, not as something you do instead of a real home, but as something you do because it offers experiences a fixed home never can. The freedom, the views, the waking up somewhere different. This concept imagines a world where you don't have to give up luxury to have that freedom, where you can have both, fully, completely, without apology. And honestly, that future doesn't feel as far away as it used to. This will never exist exactly as you've seen it today. It's a concept, it's fictional, it's AI generated.
and it is still one of the most thoughtfully imagined mobile living spaces I have ever analyzed. Now, here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know, that outdoor balcony on the upper level, game-changing design feature or impractical dream? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this kind of deep dive concept analysis is what you come to YouTube for, there's a lot more of it on this channel, and hitting subscribe is honestly the simplest way to make sure you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.